Hello, networkers, and welcome back to another episode of Ask a Network Engineer, where I will answer one of your questions. And this question comes from Wolf Barno N. And his main question in this particular post is, how do you study or grow your knowledge in different technologies and vendors and certifications? Like he wants to study for Fortinet stuff and Python programming, CCIE routing and switching. How can I find the time for all of that, given that he work 9 hours, 5 days a week? Can you share how would a person schedule basically how to study and to learn about so much? And let me add another question to this conversation. And this is posted by Sal Garcia. And he's currently enrolled in a CCNA bootcamp class that he takes on Saturdays. And he's having kind of a hard time trying to basically study, prepare for the CCNA. And he's really asking how can he maximize basically his, maximizing his focus and to prepare for the CCNA. Because right now what's happening is that he reads a couple of pages in his CCNA book. Then he'll go to YouTube and check out a couple of videos, on CCNA related content. Then he'll go to Facebook and do a few things there. Go back to reading a couple of pages in the CCNA book, and then, check some emails. So he's looking for more assistance of how you can basically study and maximize your time of being productive or being effective, I should say. So these two questions are very, very interesting. So in this episode, I'm going to talk more about how to organize and how to schedule what your learning should be based on the level you are as a network engineer. So let's go ahead and get started. In many of the episodes for Ask a Network Engineer, I talk a lot about what you should do to be in demand as a network engineer, to be employed, and that sort of thing. And I talked a lot about you need to be certified, get your CCNA, your CCNP, get your CCIE, which requires a lot of studying on its own. Then I also talk about getting experience with other vendor products besides Cisco, like Palo Alto Networks, Fortinet, Juniper, Riverbed, etc. And recently in the SDN videos, I talked about programming and basically starting to get exposure to that. Python programming is what I recommended. So what the questions that were asked, and probably what many of you are probably thinking as well, that's overwhelming. Where do I begin with this? And a lot of this does come down to what your study habits will be. And when something is overwhelming, it's basically something that you say, I can't do it, it's impossible. And the thing to really understand is that all of this takes time. Now, I want to say something else here that's going to make it more overwhelming. That when you are learning about particular things, right? Like with networking, whether it's Cisco or other vendors, you're basically going to learn things like how do I configure those products? You're going to learn about the concepts, basically about different protocols and things like that. You're going to learn how to troubleshoot, how to basically verify particular operations. You also have your certification that you have to prepare for. And luckily, the certification that you prepare for, they're going to teach you about the concepts, configuration, and troubleshooting and support. So you have all of that. But there's other things that you have to learn as well. One of those things is you have to learn about new hardware that is introduced. Because hardware changes all the time by all vendors. Now, it's not much of a big learning curve, but you need to be aware and up to date with the latest technology that is out there. Because with new hardware, they also have new features. There could be new protocols, new services that are introduced with that hardware. So that's why it's important to learn about new hardware, so then you can then learn about the new services and features. And that means learning the concepts, configuration, and how to support it and how to monitor those particular operations. Another thing that you have to learn is being up to date with the technology trends. This is extremely important. So there's a lot of different trends, and I talked about this in one of the speed rounds. Things like cloud computing. There's other things like the Internet of Things, the Internet of Everything, CryptoLocker. You need to learn about these different types of lingos and these different conversations that are out there, these terminologies, because that's going to be important of basically being up to speed with where things are moving towards. Okay, you want to be ahead with technology, not way behind. Because remember, technology always changes. You don't want to kind of be just basically too far behind. So you got to be basically prepared for things like that. And of course, you also want to make sure that, again, you learn about other vendor products that I talked about, how, understanding those concepts, how to configure, how to support them. And I talk about programming. So those are the main areas to understand that when you are a network engineer, or basically an IT professional for that matter, those are the main topics that you would need to focus on every year, or basically every month, for learning and staying ahead to be a in-demand network engineer. So with everything that I just talked about, let me provide you a nice, good kind of roadmap of what you should be focusing on based on the level that you are. So let me throw up the graphic. Here we are. And let's talk about this. So you should engage this based on where you are now along your journey as a network engineer, and use this as a baseline, okay? So when you're starting out as a beginning level network engineer, your main focus should be with certifications. And remember, with certifications, you're going to learn about the concepts, you're going to learn about configuration, and you're going to learn about troubleshooting. All of those concepts, or all of those components, are part of the certification, which is perfect. So basically, you want to begin and get your CCNA. If you got that, then you understand concepts, configuration, and troubleshooting. Once you're done with your CCNA, then you go ahead and do your CCNP, which is going to be a number of tests. Now, as a bonus, if you have the extra time, so you're studying for your CCNA or your CCNP or one of the exams for the CCNP, as a bonus, you should learn about new terminology and new networking trends. That's what you should do basically, as if you have some extra free time or you want to do something different. But that's only a bonus. If you do not have the time to do that, no worries. Because if you're preparing for your certification, they're going to give you basically the current technology and trends lingo, basically, part of your certification process. So don't be too alarmed that the latest is not being part of the certification. Just understand that if you're starting out, focus on the certifications. If you have extra time, then you want to learn about new terminology and new trends that are out there. So let me step back for a quick minute, and some of you are probably thinking, what's the best place I can go to learn about new technology trends or new terms that are out there, right? Well, this is something that I do every week for a couple of minutes. It's not very long, but the best site that I really have seen is a site called Webopedia. And basically this is a page that introduces new terms that are out there, new technology trends, that sort of thing. And it's really great because it's kind of broken out in different type of months. But you can see things here in this screenshot about new technology trends like bring your own network. You see things like identity lifecycle management, or 802.11ah, or something also called Wi-Fi Halo, which operates at 900 megahertz. Those are things that are starting to pop up now in articles. And guess what? If you know about those trends, you can go, yes, I know what that is because I am aware of that new term or that technology trend that's now being introduced. This is probably where I would tell people that if you have the extra time, go ahead, just do it once a week. If you want to, just do it once a month. And you can just kind of learn about new technology trends that are kind of out there and just kind of learn about what they are. Don't focus too much on how it's configured, about particular specifications. Those are the details of that. Just kind of be aware and kind of read basically what's kind of out there. You can also search for particular terms if you like. If you're curious about what is dark fiber, for example, you can go ahead and type that in there and it'll give you a nice basic description for what it is. It's a very, very good site that's very, very simple. So this is what I would recommend to kind of look at for learning about new terms. So back to our chart. So we talked about what to focus on when you're starting out as a network engineer, and as a bonus, what you should consider. Now, let's say that now you're now a mid-level engineer, you got your CCNA, and you're halfway through your CCNP. So that puts you into an intermediate stage. Here, your main focus should continue with your certifications. You're completing your CCNP, but you're also doing your CCIE. And remember, doing all of that, you're still learning about concepts, configuration, and troubleshooting and monitoring operations. So that's still very good. But you should also now focus on other additional things, such as new hardware that is out there. Like go to Cisco's website and look at their new products for their switches, their routers, their security appliances. Kind of see what's out there. Look at the performance specs, but also look at what new features or services or protocols that could be introduced with that particular new hardware that is out there. And when you learn about that, then maybe you can start learning about those new services and kind of like how they work, how they operate, basic concepts. So at that level, it's really important to kind of get started with that. Learning new hardware, but also learning about the new features, services, and protocols that are introduced with the new hardware. And of course, as a bonus, you want to take advantage of learning about the new terms and technology trends. So that's what I would recommend at an intermediate stage for how you should do your learning. For the third stage, which gets you more into a senior or expert level, this is basically where you mainly focus on getting your CCIE, because that's going to take probably a couple of years, which makes sense because typically Cisco recommends to have at least 2 years of experience before you get your CCIE, which is probably a good baseline because it's giving you exposure to knowing how to configure equipment. So continue focusing on your certifications, which will once more stress on the concepts, configuration, and troubleshooting. That's important. But also, your focus will also get a little bit more detailed. You should also learn about, again, the new trends. That now becomes very important. New trends, new terminology. Learning about new hardware, but also learning about new features, services, and protocols that are introduced with the hardware that you're reading about. So all that should be your main focus. Now, as a bonus, if you have extra time, so you're done your studying for your CCIE, you learn about the latest trends, you learn about kind of the recent hardware that's out there by Cisco or Palo Alto Networks or anything like that, and you learn about some of the new features or protocols out there, and you have free time, then you want to take that extra free time as a bonus to learn about other vendor products like Palo Alto Network firewalls or the Riverbed WAN optimization appliances. And also maybe you get some exposure with programming. So this is basically where you do this at this particular stage for how you're doing your learning. And from there, you get to the fourth stage of how you should do your studying. And basically at that level, you are focusing on, your main focus is learning about other vendor products, basically. Palo Alto Network firewalls, Riverbed WAN optimization, Meraki, things like that. You want to get that level of exposure at that particular stage in your career, but also focusing on programming. But there's still some recurring items that you still have to always be up to date on. And we talked about this, and that's basically learning about the new terms, new trends, new hardware, new features, services, and protocols. Basically, when it comes to that, do that on a monthly basis. Just spend one day, maybe on a weekend, who knows? And you just say, I'm going to check out, what new hardware is out there by Cisco? What data center switches do they have? Oh, they have this kind of performance. They have these kind of new features. Let me read a little bit about those features, Then let me check out some of the new terms that's kind of out there. And so I can kind of be aware of what's going on out there in the industry and where the industry is moving towards. All this you just need to do basically once a month. So this is not something that's going to be time consuming, but it's still very, very valuable that makes you in demand and aware of what's going on. So this is what it looks like at a bird's eye view for the different kind of stages of how you should be learning about technologies. And just kind of figure out where you are today. If you're entry level, then you focus basically on the first block. you focus on certifications. Don't focus on other vendor products. Don't learn about programming. Don't even learn about new hardware yet. Focus on the basics, which is what the CCNA actually is doing. But as I said, as a bonus, you can use these bonus objectives to kind of give you a good guideline of what you should be doing. So again, this table is mainly just kind of like a baseline that you can start with. You may want to improvise and change this to your own liking based on what your job is right now. So if your job involves you maybe at an entry level, but you're supporting Palo Alto Network firewalls, then make adjustments that maybe the bonus is that you're learning about Palo Alto Network firewalls, things like that. I just want to kind of give you guys a good template of where to get started if you're not sure basically where to get started for learning about all of this stuff that is out there that you need to learn. And that means things like Fortinet, Python programming. If you're not there yet, don't focus on that because you still have to understand the concepts. It's great to learn programming, but you don't know what you're going to be using that programming for. You got to have that exposure of configuring routers and switches and knowing how they work, how the protocols work. And those basically is what you learn when you are getting certified. It's enforcing or reinforcing the concepts, the configuration, and how they work operationally. And that would then go hand in hand for how you can make your own program codes that can now interact with the hardware. You got to get the basics first, you move up, and this is what that basically this table is providing. So kind of use this as a template for where to get started. So now you figured out exactly from the template what to focus on for studying. So you're not overwhelmed as trying to study everything, okay? So once you figure out where you are positioned in that particular chart that I provided, the question is, well, how do I study this on a day-to-day basis? So what you should definitely do is look at what your current schedule is. And each person is going to be different, so only you can answer that. Because you will have work responsibilities, like you may work from basically 9 hours a day, 5 days a week. You may work probably on the weekends. You may also have some personal or family responsibilities as well. So you need to kind of figure out what that is. And then basically try to figure out where you have free time. So then you can basically study maybe in the morning, during your break, at work, if that's something that is allowed or something that you do normally. During lunch, you can study as well. When there's slow periods at work, like maybe it's a holiday week, take advantage of that time. Just don't sit there and chit chat with your friends about movies. You can if you want, but I'm trying to help you here. Take advantage of that time. That's what I did. I studied all the time when there was free opportunities at work. So do that, but also a little bit even in the evening if you can allow that. So really what you're doing is, for what you're focusing on, most of this for you guys is going to be focusing on certifications. And that means you're going to be really either reading the book or watching videos. Now, I kind of recommend both, okay? But the book is probably really the most effective solution. So for that, just do a little bit every single day. You can figure out how many pages. You can say how many pages are in this particular book. So you can say, oh, there's 300 pages. So you can kind of determine how many pages can I focus on that I should read every single day. So maybe you read 20 pages a day. Maybe you do one chapter a day, or maybe one chapter every 2 days. Just kind of look at the book, kind of get an idea of the number of pages that exist for the, per chapter, and do that, right? So maybe that's what you do for basically for the entire book. You go through everything. Do a little bit every single day based on the number of pages or maybe the number of chapters or part of a chapter. Then once you're done with that, then you can say, now I'm going to do video. Let me just watch videos now. So if you bought a video series, then you can just start working through that. Basically one video at a time or a certain number of minutes in that video, and you're taking notes. Then maybe from there you do more self-studying where you're kind of going through, you're answering test questions, things like that. Keep it nice and simple, but the main thing is do a little bit every day. If you're basically reading the book, focus on the book. Just read the book. If there's a particular concept that you're not really comfortable with, like maybe there's something about OSPF, that's fine because you're making notes whatever you're doing. So just kind of put a little question mark there and say OSPF, say I don't know what this really means. I can reread the page again if you want, or you can say, you know what, I'm going to put a question mark here, but let me check out some videos related to OSPF. So don't go back and forth, just continue on with your learning, but kind of keep track of which areas that you are not comfortable with. When you're learning about new technology terms and new hardware or new features or protocols or services within those new hardware devices, you can just do that basically either once a week or once a month, whatever you're comfortable with. And basically, again, that's really a bonus if you have that time, depending on what level you are. The other thing that you could do is basically do something different every single day. So for example, you could say something like this. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays is focused on CCNA only when there's free time. Whether it's in the morning, whether it's at lunch, in the evening, you're focusing on your CCNA. Then maybe on Tuesdays, you learn about maybe new terms that are out there. You go to Webopedia and you just search some new terms and learn about those words. Maybe you also learn about new hardware from Cisco or maybe Fortinet that particular day. Now maybe on Thursdays, maybe you learn about new protocols, new features that you have learned from the new hardware that you did on Tuesday. So you just kind of focus on that maybe. Then maybe on the weekend, maybe you focus on programming or learning about a particular vendor product in a video series like our website, learning about Palo Alto Network firewalls, and you just focus on that for the weekend. So doing that gives you a lot of flexibility that you're learning a lot of different things. So that can definitely work. But I kind of urge against that if you're starting out. Because if you're starting out, a lot of this is going to be fresh to you. There's a lot of new stuff and it can be very confusing and it'll be very overwhelming. Your brain is going to hurt. You're getting networking at so many different angles from your CCNA studying. Then you learn about new technology trends. Then you learn about new hardware and new protocols and new programming and new... Keep it simple. You will get there. And that's why the template that I provided is really probably the best method for how you should slowly progress, for how you learn. And eventually you will kind of look at this and go, I have learned a lot. It's going to take a lot of years of experience. But that is one particular thing that you could consider if you are basically an intermediate or expert or higher in those stages of learning, that you can treat each particular day or a certain set of days of basically learning something different. The last point that I do want to make is with study habits is that if you're having a hard time, like basically doing a little bit every single day, like maybe you're reading 10 pages a day and you're having a hard time doing that, that maybe you do have the time, but it's just really hard to kind of focus on that, okay? And if you're doing that, then it could be that maybe self-learning is a hard thing to do. And I did a particular episode about this, kind of, I guess in the beginning, about self-learning versus classroom learning. There are certain people that prefer to be in a classroom setting for learning about something. And there's certain people that just can't sit down on their couch and read 5 pages. There's a lot of people out there. So you may be one of those people. So you need to kind of figure out what that is for you. And if you prefer classroom, then take advantage of trying to figure out what classes do I sign up for, take those classes, and basically there it is, get your certifications or learning about some particular technology trend. So again, for me, I am more effective on doing self-learning because I can do it at my own pace and during my own schedule and my own time. So just kind of figure that out if you're having a hard time trying to stay focused with what you're doing. Because really that's a personality thing. I mean, I can tell you, well, yes, just sit in a quiet room, have no distractions. If music distracts you, then no music. If you like classical music, play that in the background and just stay focused. Read the book and the number of pages that you are set or committed to do. Simple as that. But I have two kids, and my daughter, she doesn't pay attention half the time. It takes a lot to keep her focused. So it's easy for me to tell you to be focused, but it is going to depend on your personality. So you have to figure out basically, is self-learning more effective for you, or is classroom learning more effective for you? But from experience and what I try to urge you guys, you need to embrace self-learning. You have to do that. If you have a hard time doing that, then you need to figure out, why are you being distracted? Is it because the content is too confusing? And if it's confusing, that's fine. Just make a note of that and just find other resources that may explain things better. Maybe there's another book that explains OSPF better, or a particular video on YouTube, or a particular video series on some other channel or website that has that. Just keep searching to find the right kind of platform that is speaking to you, so that you can go, that's what they mean. Just don't give up for that. If you are getting distracted by that, you want to find the right thing that makes sense to you. I do it all the time. When I read a particular article sometimes, and I see these technology trends, and I'm like, what are they talking about? Remember, I have like 20 years of experience here, and sometimes I read these articles that people write, it doesn't make any sense. So then I say, well, let me try to find some other article out there that's speaking English and speaking words that I can understand. And I search for it and I find it and I go, that makes sense. So now I can go back to the previous content that was confusing me, and I can go, okay, now I understand. They should have said that the first time. You want to kind of figure that out. Don't quit. Don't quit. Just find other resources that may explain that particular subject matter better. And we are done with this episode. So thank you very much for the great questions, and just keep those considerations in mind. And as always, I want to hear from the rest of you guys. So if you have any questions about being a network engineer or anything in the networking field, anything applies, you can post your questions below in the comments, and your question will come up in a future episode on this channel. So for the next episode, it's going to be a couple weeks when I do return. I'm in the final preparations of basically training for a marathon. If you don't know what a marathon is, it's basically a race that's basically 26.2 miles. It's very tedious, and I've been training for the past year. So in the next week and a half, it's going to happen officially. So I'm a little nervous. So I'm trying to get more prepared for that. So I'm basically going to be kind of not doing any kind of work, training, videos, anything like that, so I can be mentally ready for that race. But I will return. So I just want to communicate with you guys to know what my plans will be. So thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to this channel if you want to see more videos like this. And also check out our practical training on our website and support what we do. You can go to rodhub.net and you get more information. So until next time, keep networking.